Hey, and this is my latest vlog update. I'm sorry that I have been a wee bit absent, but since the last one posted on the beginning of January, I've had a staff member resign, which means I suddenly had to return to work at 100 miles an hour, and it's not exactly what I planned. And with Southland having the lowest unemployment percentage in the entire country, that does not make it easy to recruit. Anyway, what has been happening? So to begin with, I have been totally just focusing on the cycling and the knee bend. Now, I have been starting on the spin bike, which I've still got parked in my hallway from work, and I have been reducing the seat height. I have been sliding the seat forwards, and I've been doing that gradually throughout the last couple of weeks. I have, at the moment, got the seat down 4 notches lower than it should be and 4 notches further forward than it should be. And this has been a wee bit of an experiment to find out where the seat adjustment needs to be at so that it makes pedaling the time trial bike actually possible. But before we get to the time trial bike, we need to use a bike and travel forward. Now, honestly, post-knee replacement, it feels like you're learning to ride a bike all over again, and that is exactly how I treated it. So we used the length of my driveway, and I got out my mountain bike, which has just got flat plastic pedals on it, you know, nice and cheap, and my trainers, so that I could take my foot off the pedal if I needed to. Now, the first run down the drive, I had Mark parked beside me, and I told him that he needed to catch me if I fall, and he needed to be behind me in case when I did my first rotation the knee wouldn't cope at the top. My biggest fear was on the first pedal round, because I've not travelled forwards before, when my knee gets to the top, pain, throws me off balance, fall off. That was my biggest fear. So here is what it looked like on the second run, because the first run we weren't for video and cameras, but this was the second run, the first attempt on my mountain bike travelling forwards. As you can see, I was pretty happy. So that means that for the first wee while, I took the mountain bike out and around the block. Now, this was quite interesting because I don't usually ride it, and it's really light on its front wheel, and that meant that all my weight had to be seated on the seat. And if you've ever had a knee replacement, you know that putting your weight through your leg puts more pressure on the knee joint and actually hurts more, and the way you actually end up unconsciously cheating is by lifting your bum cheek. So I was doing a wee little hip hitch for the first wee while, and I decided to go around the block, and the block is quite small, and I went round the block on a left-hand turn constantly, so that I hoped that the traffic wouldn't stop me and I could keep on going, because I actually wasn't sure whether I could start once I stopped, because my feet aren't attached to the pedals and it was getting pedaling again. And what I normally do when I take my foot off and put my foot on, I have discovered, is put my foot back on at the top of the pedal stroke. That's not happening. So I've had to adjust it. So my first rotation round the block, I managed to make it and not fall off, and I managed to make it and not have to stop, which is even more bonus, and it took me 40 minutes. Now, it felt like I was creeping along. Now, there's a little overbridge just before my house, and it literally just goes up and over a railway track. It's not that steep. It felt like a mountain when I came back the first ride round on my mountain bike. But you know what? I don't care, because I'm travelling forwards, and this is a good thing. Then I did that a few times. So the next time I did that, I'm around the block in half the time. Mark said I was must have made a mistake. But the second time it wasn't as windy and it was sun shining, and I honestly did feel like I was travelling forwards better. But my legs get really tired really fast, my quads especially, and I have to freewheel every now and again, which really doesn't sit well with me because I know that cycling used to be pretty good and I was able to do it all the way up to my up. But that's all right because I'm travelling forwards even though it's on a mountain bike. So I persisted with the spin bike, which is still parked in my hallway. I've got it from work because it makes the adjustments easy and measurable. So I have been working on the spin bike and I've been notching it down a bit, and at the same time I've been adding a bit of speed because my surgeon said that speed is how to make it more difficult, and I've also been able to add a bit of resistance. Now this was all in preparation for having to travel on the road because I'm going to have to propel myself forwards. So I wasn't doing anything that exciting, just a little bit of resistance on, a little bit of speed up, and I was doing it matching to different song speeds and things like that I had on my Spotify playlist. And then once I managed to get the bike down to 8, which is 4 lower than it should be, I decided that it was time to try the time trial bike again. So on the trainer, this is what it looked like. So, having gone through the terrifying trials of travelling down the drive on a mountain bike, and honestly it was terrifying, I told my husband that I was terrified and he said, well, don't do it. And I said, well, I have to do it because if I don't face my fear then I'll never ride a bike again. It was like riding a bike for the first time, like a kid. Now, add into the mix the Cervelo, which is a time trial bike, and it's got needs a much more aggressive riding position, and I needed to be sure that I could pedal it without a problem, and I could pedal it sitting up, weight through the leg, and down on the bars, which is actually a touch easier. And I also needed to make sure I could get on and off. Now, someone suggested to me I should put the flat plastic pedals on the Cervelo so I could try it out first. No, I'm sorry. My time trial bike's far too cool for that. So what I did was I put a 20-kilo weight on the trainer, on the back of the trainer, so that I could jump on and jump off the bike whilst it was still clipped on the indoor trainer in the garage and practice getting on and off. Now, they can only do this to a certain degree before I've actually got to try it on the road. So we're back to being terrified. Now, my drive is not actually that long, and I was not actually sure whether it was long enough to get my foot clipped into the pedal and back out of the pedal in time for my dear husband to catch me. So we did a second run. So he's back out on the drive again. I'm parked at the garage, and I aim to set off up towards the road and clip my foot in and get it back out again before I get to him in order to be able to make sure that I can stop. First attempt, failure. I wasn't actually able to get my foot clipped in time before I had to stop again. So we turned it around because my drive's got a slight slope and it slopes down towards the drive. Garage. So we turned it around. So he went down to the other end of the drive and we tried it again. So now I'm at the road and I'm cycling back towards the garage. And this time I actually managed to get my foot clipped in just in time and out again, and I managed to stop effectively. Woohoo! So next stage, travelling forwards on the road. Well, actually getting started on the road with your feet clipped into a pedal is way easier because you can pedal with one leg because it's attached. So getting going wasn't a problem. What was the thing that was going to concern me is whether I could cope with the amount of flexion I needed and cope with the pain that it was going to cause me in order to pedal this bike and travel forwards, and whether my legs had enough power or not. So I set off around the same block. So the first time I did this block, it took me 40 minutes. The second time I did this block, it took me 20 minutes. Now, this time I'm on a time trial bike, which is faster, supposedly. But we had a bit of a technical glitch because we'd had to move my seat back a little tiny bit, only a couple of millimeters, to be able to ride it. And I've got it marked, so I intend to put it back because we've got it ergonomically measured up, and it was actually done on a computer for me. So round the corner I go, and the seat starts tilting like this. This is not good for the lady gone. So I had to stop and fix it. So at the end of that first loop, I had stopped, went back into the garage because this bike is actually a carbon bike, so I don't want to over tighten and break something. So we get out the torque wrench, fix the seat again, and away I go on a second loop. Now the second loop was probably a little bit too far. Now it took me 19 minutes, so I've taken another minute off, which is not so massive, but it's still less, and it's a different riding position, and it actually hurt the whole time, but it was a hurt that was bearable, and I know that the flexion pain is something I've got to tolerate if I want to make it improve, and I know if I can cope with this bike for that will improve my flexion even more, because I was riding the mountain bike without pain. So off I go around on a second loop, and I managed to make it back, and all is well. So here's what that looked like. Getting on my nerves was the fact that I couldn't ride my bike. Well, I'm not fast and it's not flash, but I can now ride my bike. The other thing that makes me really pleased about this was that I was talking to the physio. The last time I saw her was the 18th of December. The next time I see her is tomorrow, the 21st of January, which is a day before 3 months post-op. And when I was talking to her last, she thought it would take me 4 months at least to be able to ride the road bike on the road, because of the amount of flexion I would need to gain, and I was at 100 degrees on the 18th of December. I measured it the other day at the end of all of this bike turbulence, and I had it measured at 120. I am hoping I can get that back to 120 tomorrow. It's quite frustrating because 120 I can't just go, whoo, bend it, hit bend, here we go, measure that. I need to warm it up on a bike, and I need to knock the seat down, knock the seat down, knock the seat down, and then when I'm feeling pretty good, right, measure it now, quick. So I'm gonna have to go and sit on a bike for a long time tomorrow when I go to the knee class in order to be able to get that flexion back, I think. But I'm hoping that I can, so then that will be 20 degrees since the last time I saw her in the 18th of December. What that also means is that I needed 120 degrees in order to be able to ride the time trial bike, even though I measured the flexion at 95. It's because of the rotation up and round and over the pedal, I think, is why I needed more than what I'd actually got it measured at. So I'm feeling pretty happy. I have managed to ride both of my bikes in the last couple of weeks. I've also managed to add some resistance, and I've added a bit of speed, and now I'm working on my walking distance. So walking distances, I have done the same track out on the estuary, and I've knocked 5 minutes off it the second time I went back out. But this weekend we did a different one. We did one in the bush. Now the challenge with this is that it's got steps, lots of them, and it's undulating up and down, which makes it quite difficult. Now I've mastered the art of climbing up steps, no problem. I haven't quite mastered the art of climbing down steps, although I had it nailed with the help of 2 walking poles by the end of this walk. However, I'm still feeling pretty chuffed because the loop was 30 minutes according to the sign. The first time I walked around it, it took me 30. The second time I walked around it, it took me 25. Woohoo! But I was knackered. However, I'm still beating the DOC signs, which is pretty chuffing good, because I was obsessed by beating the DOC signs just before the op, if you remember my last walk before that. So I'm also feeling happy about that. One more not totally unexpected side effect of knee replacement. Of course, replacing the knee, if you look at the comparison of my knee replacement knee and my previous knee before the knee replacement on the x-ray comparison at the head of my PT page, you'll see that there's a different alignment. And you know what that means? That means that it makes your leg align differently. It means your foot land differently, and everything goes different. So yes, I've had to go back to the hospital, to the podiatry department, for them to change my orthotic and adjust it to my new leg. But we're working on that gradually, and hopefully that'll all be straightened out soon. And my back pain has started to go away, which is also blessing. And finally, because of having lost now 2 staff members and not been able to fill the post yet, I'm back at work. More than I wish. And I'm also back taking massage. Now I am also limiting it to 30 minutes at the moment, and it's working all right if I give myself big gaps in between. And I know that at the end of the day I've probably got a swollen ankle. I'm probably going to have to sit with my foot up in the air when I get home from work. That seems to be reasonably normal though these days, and it seems to be reasonably normal if you ask another knee replacement client too. I'm also back taking classes, which is quite cool, and it's been a long time since I've took classes, but I've got the classes back in exchange for the personal training. I've had to take evening classes because I'm replacing the person that's vacated their post. Now in the classes it's quite hilarious because I am now able to know which exercises I can demonstrate, and my clients are like, well, that's not fair because you can do it and I can't, and you've just had a knee replacement. So this is making me feel quite happy too. So this means that I'm not taking any prisoners when it comes to giving me excuses about exercise. No. I've mastered squats to a certain level. I've mastered lunges with my knee replacement knee forwards. I have not mastered lunges with my knee replacement knee backwards just yet. It's the weight through it when it's bent is what is still giving me issues. But I'm only 3 months post-op and I've smashed the goals so far in quite a lot of ways. So I'm feeling quite happy. There are days when it's pretty crap and it feels like a leg with a lump of metal in it. There are some times, I wouldn't say days, there are periods of time in the day when I'm walking and it actually feels almost like the other leg. And it never has up until now. So that's pretty cool. So I'm hoping those moments will increase and the lump of metal in my leg feeling will decrease, and I'm hoping that I will continue to make progress with my flexion. I'm aiming for the full 130, which is a full bend of the knee. It'll always be quite difficult for me because my other leg hyperextends, so when I stand with 2 legs straight, one of them is more straight than the other one, and the same when I bend my leg back at the back, I'm never going to be able to get my foot all the way up to my bum because that's the design of the prosthetic, it's not going to allow it, and that's going to be quite tricky because I'm still quite flexible on the other side. However, all in all, it's been a pretty good couple of weeks, and like I say, 2 days from now we're on 3 months post-op. So that is my update, and I will talk to you again soon.